Behind the Scene with David Bedein at the end of June 2024. This telecast is dedicated to the memory of Rabbi Mordechai Kaplan, who was a teacher of mine and many other people, including my own father-in-law, and someone who were brought in what's called Reconstructionist Judaism. Reconstructionist Judaism was applied to all levels of Torah, of Jewish learning and Jewish observance. The idea of Reconstructionist Judaism is to apply Judaism to the society in which a Jew lives, not only to keep it at the synagogue. His involvement with social justice, with community centers, with summer camps, with all kinds of issues having to do with labor law, you name it, he was involved with that. And I had the opportunity to privately learn with Rabbi Kaplan in the 1970s when I worked at the Hillel Foundation in Jerusalem. And his mentor, his protege, Dr. Jack Cohen, was the director of the Hillel Center. And I enjoyed having the opportunity to speak with Rabbi Kaplan and get some insight into how to apply Judaism to the general society. Now, Rabbi Kaplan started the Reconstructionist Rabbinical College, which trained a whole generation of Jews how to work with society on social issues. Now, in the past 6 months, unfortunately, many of the Reconstructionist rabbis and Reconstructionist students and Reconstructionist faculty have been involved in, believe it or not, pro-PLO activity. I'm not saying that people don't have a right to their opinion. If people don't like Israel or want to criticize Israel, that's their business. However, what's happened in the last 6 months is a concerted effort by people in the Reconstructionist movement who bash the memory of Rabbi Kaplan. Now, I'm going to give one story about Rabbi Kaplan that I personally experienced in 1969, December 1969, when Rabbi Kaplan called for a gathering of students from all over the United States to meet with him about the Palestinian issue. And we raised questions with him. Well, why not recognize the PLO, the Palestine Liberation Organization, which seems to be the new representative of the Palestinian Arab people? His answer was very fervent and very clear. The PLO, the Palestine Liberation Organization, has a charter which is based on one thing: destroying the Jewish people in the land of Israel. That charter was enacted in 1964 at the founding conference of the PLO and never revoked. Ironically, in 1996, I had the privilege, the honor, or the scoop, if you want to call it that, to be the first journalist and the only journalist to cover the PLO meeting of the Palestine National Council, where they were supposed to cancel the PLO covenant as a requirement for continuing the peace process. Now, that's very important because the peace process was based on not only recognition the PLO would give to Israel, but also the cancellation of the PLO covenant, which never happened. And at that time, I didn't realize it would be the only crew there. We recorded it, and there were 40 academics who said, "Oh, it's happy days are here again. We have a very important development that the PLO has recognized Israel and also canceled the covenant," which it never did. The meeting was convened, and what happened was a decision was made to do one thing and one thing only: to recognize the fact that the PLO charter needs to be changed. That's it. We brought Professor Yoshua Porat, a left-wing member of the Meretz political party, a person who wrote many books and commentaries on the Palestinian national entity, and he reviewed the actual minutes of the meeting and came to the conclusion that there was no cancellation of the PLO covenant. And we were alone at the time, but it took a while for it to sink in that the PLO is still at war with Israel, and despite what was called the peace process between Israel and the PLO, it continued. And even under the current circumstances with Netanyahu as the prime minister, the recognition of the PLO, from Israel's point of view, forgets to mention all the time that the PLO has not changed its covenant. Now, what's happened in the last 6 months, as I began to say, is that there's been a movement amongst the Reconstructionist rabbis, Reconstructionist students, Reconstructionist community to support the Palestinians at this time, even though the leadership is dominated by Hamas and a section of the PLO, of the Palestinian National Movement, which not only does not recognize Israel, but puts its charter, the Hamas charter, as even more important. That's a charter that endorses the murder of Jews anywhere and any time. And the PLO, or the Palestine Authority, adds another issue which has escaped most public knowledge and most media coverage, which is that if you murder a Jew you get his salary for life. That's not emphasized. Now, that was a decision formally made in August 2015, and we publicized after we got our Palestinian journalists to get a hold of that document, the decision of the Palestinian Authority to recognize the right of the Palestinians to have a salary for life if they murder a Jew. We got the actual document and we shared it with the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs and with intelligence agencies all over the world. Now, if people want to support what's called a two-state solution, there needs to be fact-finding investigations to influence policymakers in terms of what that really is. Number one, as I just mentioned, there's a Palestinian law which provides a life salary for anyone who kills a Jew anywhere. That could be in Israel, that could be in Indiana, anywhere. Number two, we must reveal Palestinian payoffs to elected officials, corporations, and universities. There's more than 300 Israel corporations involved in investments in the Palestine Authority and in UNRWA. That needs to be revealed. Number three, there has to be clear documentation of the Palestinian Authority involvement in the Simchat Torah murders on October 7. Number four, there needs to be thorough research of the Palestinian thievery of humanitarian supplies. There's enough supplies going there to support the Palestinian population, certainly in Gaza. However, the massive thievery of those supplies needs to be mentioned. In the 1980s, Dr. Eli Lash, who was the head of health services for the Israel administration, pointed out all the time and revealed and exposed the fact that humanitarian supplies were stolen and sold in the open market. And finally, the actual Palestinian sale of medical equipment and medicine on the open market needs to be revealed and reviewed. Now, in addition to all this, there are those who are spreading the rumor, especially amongst the rabbis of the Reconstructionist movement, that Israel is conducting a policy of starvation of the Palestinian population. Now, there is a Rabbi Alyssa Weiss from my hometown of Philadelphia who has spread this rumor. She came to Israel and was actually arrested in a demonstration because he wanted to help the starving Arabs. And this kind of allegation, based on rumor mongering, needs to be revealed, needs to be upset. What's very important, and what do we do about such a thing? These organizations are not only supporting the Palestinian Authority, they're supporting constituents of the organizations of the Palestinian Authority which support terrorism or open terrorism. And that is an offense, a felony in the United States, in Canada, and in Great Britain, maybe in other countries too. But there's no reason why the law enforcement authorities should not be enforcing the law against these organizations that are supporting terrorism. As a matter of fact, it would be appropriate for the FBI to send a delegation, to send a crew, to send a team, to look at the Reconstructionist Rabbinical College and see how much material is being given out there, disseminated in favor of terrorist organizations. And there should be arrests made. And there's no reason why that a infrastructure, which used just to support Palestinian human rights or whatever, should not be held accountable for their new support for Palestinian terror groups. Understand that the change that's taken place in the Palestinian milieu, it used to be run only by the PLO, the Palestine Liberation Organization, which did everything possible to improve their public relations and make it look like they were a human rights operation. As a matter of fact, in 1989, after Reagan recognized the PLO, they registered themselves, the PLO registered itself in the United States as the Palestine Human Rights Information Movement. Quite an anomaly, okay? Now, what's very important to understand is that the Palestine Human Rights Information Movement was getting their material from Dr. Mustafa Barghouti, the head of the Palestinian Medical Relief Committees, which is an entity of basically the Palestinian medical establishment, except that Dr. Mustafa Barghouti is also the head of the Palestinian Communist Party and he's one of these people that has no hesitancy to spread disinformation, as communists are known to do. So my conclusion today is that the followers of Rabbi Mordechai Kaplan should be paying attention to the reality of the Palestinian Authority now, whose leadership is Hamas, a Hamas terrorist organization that makes no bones about being a terrorist organization. And the time has come for people like Rabbi Elisa Weiss to be disciplined, perhaps questioned by the FBI in terms of their continuing support of terrorist operations. This is not a theoretical issue. I never dreamt in my life that I would be broadcasting about a rabbi who was supporting terrorist operations. Imagine if this was during World War II and there was a Friends of the Gestapo organized in New York or Philadelphia. Anyway, this is a very serious issue, and it certainly blasphemes the memory of Rabbi Mordechai Kaplan, who would never have tolerated such a thing. What Rabbi Kaplan said to us in December 1969 is, how can you possibly work with an organization who in its charter supports the destruction, dismemberment, and war against the state of Israel? I now refer you, my audience who are following this broadcast, to a group of a series of links to our films, our movies, which were shot on location at the UNRWA camps, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency camps. The UNRWA uses the Palestinian Authority curriculum, and what they have done has been to promote their cause very openly through the school system. And 8 months after the war began, the school system of the PA is still dedicated to one thing: the war against the Jews, but inciting the children against Israel. And that's something very important to see. Take a look at the link and open up the link through your server. It speaks for itself. Behind the Scene with David Bedein.